Good afternoon. Well, I'd like to kind of start about a minute early, if you don't mind. Continue eating your lunch, but I didn't want to get into the commissioner's time with anything that I might have to say. I'm Sam Brentano, Marion County Treasurer. Some of you may remember that I was a commissioner for a few years. Really, I look back on one of the happiest times of my life, and I hope you were happy too. I want to welcome everybody. It's just really, I've looked around and see old faces and people that I know are still concerned with the county that come to the one time a year I feel like there's really a connection where the county can get some of the myriad of things they're working on out into the public. So let's get officially started. I'd like to introduce Mitch Warren, chaplain from the Sheriff's Department. He'll get things going.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start out with a Pledge of Allegiance, so if you can, please stand with me for the pledge that I'll be leading. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. And if you'd now join me for the invocation for today. Our gracious provider, we are honored for this opportunity to come together as Marion County, the governments represented, the business entities, and the community members represented here today. We are grateful for the opportunity to be able to meet freely to share with one another what makes Marion County a great place to live. For our leaders, grant them wisdom and clarity as they share today. And as they look to the future, provide the vision and understanding of what the county needs and the solutions to meet those needs. We ask for protection over our leaders and for those who live here and call this great place home. And may there be additional protection over our first responders throughout this county. May a spirit of collaboration and goodwill guide what is presented here today. Let us approach our work with open minds, respectful hearts, and a shared commitment to making a positive difference. May each idea have a fair hearing, and may we discover creative solutions together as a community. May our gathering be marked with friendly encounters, thoughtful dialogue, and a genuine sense of camaraderie. And as we share this meal together today, may we be strengthened in bond that connects us as a community and neighbors together for the common good. We pray these things. Amen.
Thank you, Mitch. Next, we used to do one at a time, but there's usually so many. But like all the elected officials here in Marion County or surrounding, if you just stand up and if the rest of you acknowledge them. I know there's a lot of you here. Thank you and thank them. I know the effort they make and it needs to be recognized. This wasn't on my list, but there's someone else I want to recognize. I was at a conference some years ago, and the presenter said, if you've got somebody that's so important in your organization that you can't survive without them, he said, fire them. And I, what? So I kind of thought about that, and it's true, you do really have to take care of those people that really make your organization grow. But Marion County, Marion County has that person. The person I'd fire, because you can't do without him, is our CAO, Jen Fritz. So would you acknowledge her? I'm not kidding with the budgeting, personnel, all the things she deals with, and she's done an excellent job. And now, kind of a fun part too, I get to recognize, I'd like to recognize the full FFA members that are here today. Would you stand up? I know they're from all over the county. It's a great organization. They do great things. When I first became a commissioner, I was at the county fair, and I found out that I didn't know this before, but all the pigs in Marion County are grown by Brentanos or Schindlers. Did you know that? So that's fun. I saw one St. Paul name as I was looking there. But now we have a speaker from one of their members, actually the son of a former employee of mine I just put together, and Levi Schurter from the Silverton chapter will talk about his activities. Levi?
Recently, I spoke at the Oregon's 2026 FFA State Convention. At this convention, I competed in extemporaneous speaking. In this competition, I'm given 30 minutes to prepare a 5-minute speech with 5 minutes of questions. In this speech, I have a very similar intro throughout the entire year. It went along the lines of this. 2 years ago, I began learning the lines of the FFA Creed. Each and every paragraph began with the words, "I believe." The truth was, I wasn't quite sure what I believed in back then. But today, I believe in agriculture, FFA, and the future of this nation. Now, my question to you is, what do you believe in? The more I thought about this question, the more I started to realize that belief is the very first step in solving any problem, task, or answering a question. When I wrote this intro, I didn't put much thought into it. Of course, I did surface level, but I didn't truly believe. Why did E.M. Tiffany, the writer of the FFA Creed, begin each paragraph with "I believe"? Well, he did this because he believed in American agriculture. He couldn't see it, but he knew that over a decade later, American agriculture would be wonderful. He believed in it just as you and I believe in it. Before anything great ever happens, you have to believe it's possible. And even when you can't see the outcome, you have to hope. The power of belief. Belief is where everything begins. No one ever works hard for something they don't believe in. No one keeps going, even when it gets hard, if they don't truly stand for it. And agriculture is directly built on belief. When you plant a seed, you believe it's going to grow. When you raise an animal, you believe it's going to flourish. When you work long hours, you believe in the outcome. And FFA is exactly built on belief. We believe we can speak in front of others. We believe we can lead. We believe we can become the human we were designed to be. And belief doesn't make stuff easy. It just gives us a reason to keep pushing. And even in writing this speech, I wanted to give up in times, but I didn't care. I understood that this hard work now was going to pay off later. And the power of hope. Hope is a feeling or desire and expectation that something better will happen in the near future. Hope is what keeps us going when things are tough. In agriculture, there are setbacks no matter what field we're in. Animals get sick, crops die, the weather fails. But we have to hope for a better tomorrow. And agriculture teaches us to keep hoping day in and day out. It isn't pretending everything's perfect. It's believing there's something worth fighting for. And hope isn't wishing things get better. It's understanding the failures and hard work now and using them to fuel us for the next day. In my life, hope and belief have played a very large role. I've learned to believe in FFA. I've learned to believe in agriculture. And I've learned to become more confident and speak. I never would have imagined if you were to ask my younger self that I would be here right now. Back then, I was nervous to speak in front of others, but I kept believing and I kept hoping. I learned to become successful in FFA, in public speaking, show pigs, and sports. Believe and hope have not just helped in this area, but in sports. Even my championship football team. We weren't the biggest team, we weren't the fastest, we weren't the strongest, we weren't the richest, but we believed in each other. We believed in our coaches, and we believed in ourselves. Now, what should you all believe in? Well, like myself, you have to believe in the next generation. You have to believe in young people. You have to believe in FFA and agriculture. For those who show up day in and day out, not quitting. These students are future farmers, husbands, wives, business owners, employees. They are the future of this country. And this next generation doesn't need people to doubt them. We need people to believe in them. Now, I don't just see belief and hope in my life. You see it all over the world. Admiral William H. McRaven, one of the Navy's most decorated men in U.S. history, talks about his experiences in Hell Week. Throughout this week, they're put through countless hours of no sleep and hard work. At the end of the week, they're sent to the mud pits. When they go in the mud, the instructor said, if 5 men would quit, if 5 men would ring the bell, you can all go home. The mud was freezing, the wind was blowing all over them, and the pain was terrible. This all seemed never ending until one man screamed out in a terrible song. 1 turned to 2, 2 to 3. The instructors threatened them to stop, but they said, no, we're going to keep going because we have hope. And pretty soon, the mud seemed a little bit warmer, the wind a little tamer, and their pain a little less. We also see this in rats. If you put a rat in the water, it can swim for 15 minutes until it drowns. You put a new rat in the water, pull it right out before it drowns, dry it off, and put it back. It can swim for 80 hours. This can show what the power of hope and belief has on us. If rats can do that, imagine what we can do in this country. I ask you again to believe in agriculture, believe in FFA, the power of hope, and those sitting in blue jackets all across Marion County. Because if you give young people something and someone to believe in, imagine what the possibilities are. Thank you.
I believe Levi is going to do great. Thank you. Well, now I'll ask the commissioners to come up, and I'm going to read their bios as they're doing that, and kind of in one group. I don't want to offend them, but they're just long lists for each of them, and I'm going to kind of shorten it up and paraphrase it because the thought of all of you yawning at one time is just a little more than I can deal with. And then I'll say, well, I will say this now. The county and the commissioners in particular, I've thought about this, they deal with just about every part of human endeavor you can think of, law and health, public works, construction, and the ability to be conversant and knowledgeable on all these subjects and act. I really think it makes them special. Don't put me into that class because I still don't know how I even got through it, but these people are all special, and I'm watching them. They're doing great things. I'll start out with Kevin Cameron. He was appointed to the board in June 2014, elected in 2014 and elected in November 14, re-elected in 18 and 22. His areas of focus: wildfire recovery, transportation, and infrastructure development, and solid waste. Prior to being a commissioner, he was serving the House of Representatives from House District 19, first appointed in February, re-elected for an additional 4 terms. Oh, I shouldn't tell this about him. He elected not to take PERS at that time. I don't know what he was thinking. He's an awfully intelligent person, but he's figured it out since. He served as assistant House Republican leader and was House Republican leader during the Tide session in 2011. His professional career includes 50 years, various positions in hospitality, including Vips Restaurants, and co-founder and CEO of Cafe Today Restaurants. Holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Marketing from Oregon State. I gotta like that. And in 2011, he received an honorary doctorate from Corbin. And Colm Willis, he has his shorter, but I know there's a longer list. He's elected in 2018, re-elected 22, led the county chair during the 2 federally declared disasters of the pandemic in the Santiam Canyon wildfires. He serves as chair of the Marion County Public Coordinating Council. Prior to that, he served as U.S. Senate Joint Economic Committee, represented small business and nonprofits. He volunteers for Catholic Community Services Foundation Board of Directors, holds a Bachelor of Arts from Boston College and a doctorate from Willamette. He lives in Staten with his wife Joan and 7 delightful children with names you can't pronounce or remember. And Danielle Bethell was elected to the board in November 2020. She's recently served as the chair of the Association of Oregon Counties. A big deal, big responsibility. She did a wonderful job. A longtime member, she was executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. She co-owns Bethell Plumbing, and she was vice chair and director on the Salem Kaiser Public School Board, current president, or past president of Association of Oregon County. Commissioner Bethell's policy interests include children and youth, housing, public safety, homelessness, behavioral health, economic development. Commissioner Bethell is a graduate also of Oregon State. I don't know, there's kind of a trend here. 2 out of 3, Boston College, I don't know what happened, but pretty good. Get a good background in government. Fire District 1, Oregon Public Utility, Oregon Disabilities Community. She and her husband and children, grandchildren live in southeast Marion County. So I kind of rushed through that, but you do kind of get the idea of all the different things they're involved in and good at, and I appreciate them, and they truly are all special. Daniel, you're...
Isn't it fun to have him introduce us? I think you all know that I had to fill his shoes. I'm still working hard at that as a county commissioner. In fact, this morning he popped into our management update, which we have on Tuesday mornings. If you want to know what the commission actually does, Tuesday mornings at 9:30, we meet and we talk about all the things that we need to get done in board session in the coming couple of weeks. And Sam sat on the wall, and at first he smiled, and then quickly he has that same scowl on his face. And I watched him for the hour with that scowl thinking, what could it be that he is thinking? And of course, like me, he'll tell you. And he did at the end, and he said, boy, I had a hard time just keeping my mouth shut. I really wanted to weigh in, and I said, on what? And I knew immediately what it was going to be. You'll be surprised to know that Marion County is frustrated with the Oregon Health Authority. It's been an ongoing theme since I've been a county commissioner. And recently, we agreed to go into a memorandum of understanding, essentially, that would give the state access to data. Marion County is data-driven. We think they should have that data so that they know what kind of beds are available across the state for folks who have high acuity need. But one of the things about that contract is it gives them a little more access, a little faster access to the beds that we need in our community for Marion County residents. And that means that other counties have access to those beds a little earlier than they would normally if we were doing old school paper. And while that normally wouldn't be a threat, it is, because we have a serious bed shortage in this state for behavioral health systems, specifically those who have really high acuity needs. And Sam talked about in the past where Kevin Mannix and himself worked on a piece of legislation to do return to county for folks that left the Department of Corrections in Marion County so they could go back to their home county upon the completion of their prison sentence. 2 years ago, we worked with Representative Diehl to create more legislation to make sure that people who left the state hospital on an aid and assist order go back to their counties. Turns out Marion County is a great place to be. Everybody wants to be here, especially if you're institutionalized here, and we have the largest number of institutions in the state. So it puts us at a disadvantage. We don't get more money for that. We don't get more staffing for that. We don't get more bed access for that. We just get really, really qualified staff that are really overworked, more than I think any other county in the state. And so I assured Sam, while I agree with him on that frustration, 2027, here we come to the legislative cycle, and we're going to have to pass more legislation to, again, protect Marion County from decisions that are made at the state level out of partnership. So, Sam, I appreciate your service, and I appreciate that there's some like-mindedness between the two of us, considering I'm still filling your shoes. All that to say, Levi, you're inspiring. Thank you for coming today. We had an opportunity to hear Levi at the Safe Agri Banquet hosted by the Salem Chamber of Commerce earlier this year. When I say we, the Board of Commissioners was present for that. And we were impressed by him and his leadership skills and his willingness to kind of share from his heart, but also to bring awareness to the fact that FFA as a program is in danger in Oregon. If you pay attention to the media, you saw during the short legislative session that they were considering defunding that program as an educational leadership system. That makes zero sense to me as a county commissioner. I'll continue to fight for FFA on every given opportunity, and I'm glad that all of you came from across Marion County to represent your respective chapters. There's like 3 tables full of FFA youth in the front here. So if you don't know what it is, I would suggest take some time at the end of this lunch and go shake their hand and welcome them into their leadership, because they are the future of Marion County and agriculture and Oregon in itself. And I really applaud you for the work that you do. I'm just going to try to keep this as short as possible because I always have a lot to say, but I wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Levi said and on what do you believe. I believe in this community. I believe that we all have a responsibility to find our purpose and then lend that purpose into the space of our community. I think it's my purpose as a county commissioner to understand the needs of Marion County as a whole, everybody that lives here, every community, every public servant, and try to figure out how to collaborate those systems together to produce the best outcomes for everyone that lives here. We have a lot of challenges ahead of us, and we do a pretty good job as a commission sharing those challenges as much as we possibly can in the media, because it shouldn't be a secret. Oregonians shouldn't be left in the dark to know what barriers we're facing. But I'll tell you, Marion County is really unique in how we navigate those barriers. We work really hard at the local level to try to overcome them and find sustainability and ROI on our investments. And we're making some great gains. On the legislative front, since Representative Salinas has been in Congress, she's been a very valuable partner to Marion County, very present and very willing to listen. When she first took office, I sat down with her and talked about what I believed the priorities should be for her to focus federally on legislation around behavioral health. One of the biggest challenges that we face is a lack of beds for secure residential treatment facilities. And we lack those beds for a variety of reasons, but also because Medicaid has a cap on them. And she did her research, and she worked extensively with our team and another Washington County team, and finally drafted legislation. It's current. I just saw it in February when I was back in DC visiting. And I can't tell you how proud I am of the fact that Oregon is leading the way to stabilize individuals in their health, their mental health, and finding a space for them in their communities. And I hope that Congress sees that as worthy legislation and passes it sooner than later with all the chaos, so we can start to increase bed capacity for individuals to have access to, but also to save dollars. Because we have to build multiple buildings, ask Bryce Peterson. Is he here? I saw his name on the list. Bryce, are you here? Yeah. He has overcome some serious hurdles in this state. Jory Health has opened recently. Thank you for your battle to get that open and to serve some folks in our community. I read a report today that says you're doing great work, and of course you're facing hurdles, but you're still present working through that. And I hope that the next facility you build allows you 32 beds instead of just 16. At the local level, we battled through the 2025 legislative session, probably one of the hardest sessions I've experienced as an elected official in Oregonian. Money is a big issue. We heard that a lot. Transportation, behavioral health, education. For me, I've been focusing on a topic around behavioral health the entire time I've been a commissioner, and it's really around civil commitment. Everybody that knows me, has heard my story, knows that civil commitment is something that I believe is necessary for folks who are really struggling in their mental illness. And they should have a safe place to go to stabilize them until they can return to their community if that's possible for community placement. While we succeeded to lower the bar for civil commitment, to have courts and district attorneys work together to provide access to civil commitment, we have no way to transport them. I don't know if you know this, but we don't actually have white vans of guys driving around with white coats to pick people up and transport them at all, anywhere in Oregon. We never have. What we have relied on always is our law enforcement partners to be able to enter into a situation thoughtfully with a court order to be able to transport. Well, because of 3 use of force cases, recently one out of California 2 years ago, law enforcement can't be our partner in behavioral health in that transportation, which means we cannot transport people when they need transport. So we have another barrier that we have to get through. It's my responsibility to work across the aisle and to work with all systems and all beliefs to figure out how to serve the person in front of me, in front of my team, to the best of our ability. We worked really hard in Marion County with partners like Disability Rights Oregon, the trial lawyers, a variety of adversarial partners typically when it comes to this kind of legislation, and we had the votes in this short session. We worked really hard, and then the chair of the committee on the final day, just because he can, decided to kill the bill. We also had the votes in the Senate. We could have passed it. We could have written new law, and we could have provided access to a system that many people in our community need. And here we are again. I promise you I will be back in 2027 Oregon legislature with that legislation because we are going to get this done. But we need more voices at the table. So I invite anybody in this room that thinks civil commitment's a bad idea or transportation by law enforcement's a bad idea to reach out to have a conversation with me. I'd like to understand your perspective, and I'd like to change your perspective and ask you to be an ally with me in 2027 to get this done. Representative Tom Anderson, by the way, is the one that drafted that legislation. On the front of being accountable to taxpayer dollars and ROI, something I learned from Dick Bethell over the years of what I would say is being a reluctant mentee of his. We invested in 2020, maybe 2019, in an electronic records management system for the health department. And while it was torture getting it online, mostly for Ryan, wherever you are, it's produced some fruitful results. In fact, just like a week ago, we went through a full report of the health department priority programs for the commission and received data on several of them. And I just want to break down a couple of the things that are really hot topics for Marion County, but really for the community of Salem. Our addiction treatment services team had an 8% decrease in clientele, but still had access to 94,000 encounters. Our adult behavioral health team had no change and had 56,000 encounters. This is just for 2025. Our behavioral health crisis center, some of you may know that we doubled, maybe tripled the size of that recently and relocated over to 1234 Commercial Street. They had a significant increase with 30,000 interactions. And we created a new program last year that's overseen by Naomi Hudkins, focusing on housing in the health department, and had a 36% increase in interactions in our community, serving over 3,700 individuals, focusing on housing as a stabilization factor in life. For me, data systems provide timely information so that way when we're looking at our community and the needs, we can pivot. It's not on emotion, it's based on data. How many people are coming in and what is the waiting list? What is the definition of that waiting list? What is the acuity of need? And how do we pivot such a huge government to make sure that we're serving our community? We now have a system in hand that can help us do that. Being data informed is really important to me, and this report will be available to the public at some point, probably on their website, I imagine. We face some additional challenges statewide with funding. The Behavioral Health Resource Network, which is funded by Measure 110 dollars, received a substantial reduction in funding, which means anybody that received a contract for addiction treatment care received a reduction in funding. In our community, I know of 5 positions from community-based organizations be laid off. We were able to stabilize because our system is a little larger as the county, but we're still impacted by that. It's not a sustainable program of funding to focus on addiction treatment services, and we need to have partners at the state level to work with us at the county level to pivot in our communities and provide real unique services. And we still don't have any prioritization of youth in Oregon. Statewide, they keep talking about it. We're gonna keep studying it. But I can tell you, front hand, we have issues. Our juvenile department is active, very active. Our chief district attorney is sitting over there shaking his head, does a lot of juvenile cases. And we have contracts now with Washington County and Clackamas County Juvenile to take their youth into our facility. That speaks to 2 things. 1, there's a need, and 2, Marion County does juvenile services really well because 2 of the largest counties in the state want to be our partner and house their youth with us. And they have a fast rate of return into their community, which speaks to our staff and the services that we provide those youth. But more importantly, my point is that we don't have a statewide lens and partner focusing on the most vulnerable age range in our community. Prevention's really important, but if we can get to youth early, we can prevent long-term harm in their life and in our community. And I would encourage all of you to be thinking about what that looks like to you, and as you're thinking about how you can make an impact, use your voice in that space. 2 final things. Marion County now has 5 outreach teams. When I became a commissioner, we had 1, the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program. Now we have CARES, which stands for Crisis Assistance Recovery Engagement Support Team. It's a team of a deputy and a lead navigator that go out into our camps and build relationships with our individuals experiencing unsheltered and bring them into care. It's not even been online a full year. I think next month a full year, April, looking at the sheriff for confirmation. And they have had huge success rates of bringing folks into housing and stabilization through that relationship. It does take time, but it takes humanity. And this Board of Commissioners, in partnership with our sheriff, is making that happen, and I'm really proud of that work. We now have back one of our MCRT teams, which is an officer with a QMHP or AP. And we're now funding that out of our own resources because the state stopped funding it 2 years ago. We saw the response, we saw the outcome, and we decided that we needed to figure it out locally, and that team is doing really good work. The point of that team is to prevent taking people to jail. It's to prevent law enforcement from responding into a situation that doesn't require jail, but otherwise would, because we didn't have a qualified mental health professional present to navigate that system. We have our community response team, which is our health-related response team, the qualified mental health professionals that are going out of the community on 988 calls. And most recently, and I know you heard about this, the state of the city. I didn't get to come, Mayor Hoy, but I heard you did an excellent job. The REACH team. And I don't know how much data you provided, but I brought some from our team that gave it to us last week as of March 11th. That team is a partnership with Salem Fire, an EMT and a paramedic and a qualified mental health associate, ride around in a Suburban, focused as a priority in downtown Salem to prevent fire engines and law enforcement from having to go with the calls that we can mitigate at the local level, the most local level. Just in a few short, they're not even online full 3 months at this point of data. They've had 92 contacts. They had, of that 92, 7 people decided to not participate, 55 were transported, and 27 were stabilized in place. The purpose of this team is to reduce the cost of resource response, but also to reduce the burden on the emergency departments, which we know have really long wait times across the state, but for sure here in Salem, and to prevent people from recidivating in that system. Being able to connect them to resources right on the spot, which this does. And it very successfully, of those 92 individuals, they connected 89 of them directly into services. Whether it was 988, Center 50+, Arches, the Behavioral Health Crisis Center, Center for Hope and Safety, HOPE, which is downtown Salem, Northwest Senior and Disability Services, Safe Sleep, and Salem Health. The Board of Commissioners recently reviewed this data, had a conversation with our health team, and felt that the pilot is going so well, they want to continue it for an additional period of time in partnership with Salem if that's what their council decides. Mayor Hoy, I know that public safety and livability is your priority as mayor, and I want to say thank you for being committed to that and working with the commission on bringing pilots forward to find the sense in it and finding stabilization and really getting true outcomes. This is true outcome, and I have the data to prove it. Well done. And then I hope one of you talks about economic development, some of our investments. Perfect. I won't go into any of those topics, but I can tell you I'm really proud of the investments we've made with our economic development dollars across the county in the last year. But one of the areas that really inspires me in our behavioral health system is where we can bring families into housing, wrap them around in services, and maintain stability for their whole family. You've heard us talk about Her Place, you've heard us talk about His Place, and last year we talked about opening Our Place. It's now been open, 8 months or so, with folks in it. Our Place is a partnership with Catholic Community Services. It's a 12-apartment complex over in the Highland community of Salem, and half of those units are for Marion County's behavioral health team. And we place families who are navigating an addiction, one or both of the parents, but doesn't have to be both, into a unit with their children in partnership with DHS and the courts to make sure safety, of course, is utmost priority. But we just had a baby born into a family unit just a couple of weeks ago for the first time to Our Place. That baby would not be with its parents right now if it wasn't for the Marion County Addiction Treatment Team and Terry's desire to have an our place. One of the most important things to me, probably the most important thing to me as a community member and a mom, is kids in our community. Keeping kids with their families as long as it's safe is the priority. However I can navigate that, whatever creative program we can bring online that's sustainable and makes sense, I'm gonna do. And what we do with behavioral health is really important. And what we do with the community with Soaring Heights and 4D Recovery is really important. Eric is here. I didn't see Victoria, but so is Corey. And I just want to say thank you for stabilizing the lives of 35 kids last year in home with their parents. We have a lot of trauma in our community. And this week I was impacted by some trauma. We have a lot of work to do still together. And in the last 6 months of my life, I've lost a cousin to overdose and a community member to suicide. Everything that I talked about is data-driven, but we're missing things. I can't do it alone. I need all of your help to continue to be the best public servant possible. Don't just read the headlines. Lean in to what that looks like and where it is in your community and take responsibility. We all are responsible for our communities. And I invite you into this space with me to make sure that we can make a difference, whether it's your neighborhood or a city next door, to show up and lean on and lean out for people. Thanks for being here today and for being a part of Marion County.
Commissioner Bethell said I was supposed to write a speech. She said, didn't you write a speech? Yeah.
You know what women don't have? Breast pockets.
It's so good to see so many people here. Chaplain, when you said your prayer this morning, I thought that was a great speech to all of us about reconciliation and reaching out across the aisle to everybody here. And I hope that's what happens in this community and continues to happen, because this is one of those communities that's worked so hard to work together, and I really appreciate what you said. Levi, thank you for what you said, because I believe the two best days in our lives are the day we are born and the day we know why. And you were talking about that. What am I doing? Why am I here? And I hope everybody thinks about that today. When you leave, why are you here? Why are we here together? It's to make this community better, a better place to be. I was wondering what to say today, and I asked my wife, who's sitting over here. She's going to get all red now. Oh, she says, you're going to talk about trash and garbage. You're going to talk about trash and sewer systems. I go, okay, I guess I will. But what is the most popular question that I get asked today? Anybody want to take a guess?
What do you do?
No. Is the drawdown going to happen? All right? Oh, I hear, oh, right. Is the drawdown going to happen? Well, I don't know. This one is not a court order, unlike the one that happened on the South Sandy Am. There's still a chance that the drawdown may not happen. If it does happen, it's going to happen in a different way. One of the things that's great about this opportunity is we've had a lot of time to prepare, and I want to thank Salem for the letter that they sent. Salem sent a letter to Army Corps talking about turbidity. And if certain levels of turbidity happen during this drawdown, they're asking Army Corps to shut down the drawdown to protect the water systems down here. Salem has worked hard. They've added wells, they've added storage, they've added directionals with Kaiser, so Salem's going to be okay. But we have a couple cities up the canyon. Staten, Mill City gets wells, right, Mayor? He's sitting right here. Staten and Gates draw their water directly out of that river, and so there's a lot of citizens that are at risk during that drawdown. But I do want to say thank you to Salem and their input, and I hope the Army Corps listened to that input, and we'll see when their report comes out. So I mentioned those two concerns about the drawdown, but there are many more. They have not proven that Green Peter, what they did down there, that the salmon that they're actually trying to save have returned. It takes a while for salmon to go out and to come back. And they have not analyzed the other damages to other populations, and especially the water system for human species and what happened. Detroit specifically, though, the Corps is their modeling shows that if they take this down to 1,395 feet, which is 55 feet below what the winter level, if you drive up there, you can see that it's always down in the wintertime, and that's for floods. They're going to take it down another 55 feet. It's never been that low. Their modeling shows that after they take it down in December, it'll come back up by February. But what if we don't have rain? What happens next? Is there going to be enough water for agriculture, for drinking, and for fish? I'm going to leave it there. It's going to happen at some point in time, maybe, maybe not. I want to talk about investments in Marion County. I think Commissioner Bethell was talking about that. Our ARPA funds that we got back after the 2020 COVID time, we are investing ARPA funds in a lot of areas, and I just want to highlight 3 of them. The Detroit Lake Marina Excavation Project. We are moving forward, but even as of last week, we're getting static in trying to get through the permitting process with the federal government. If anybody here has ever tried to get a permit to do anything with the federal government, you know how hard that is. And in this case, we have to get several of those. The Marion County radio system, county-wide. Brian Nicholas is here. He's been busting his hiney to try to get this project done. And we are going, there he is over there, Public Works Department. We're gonna have a county-wide system that, if you remember, during the fires, we couldn't talk to each other. Sheriff couldn't talk to certain people, and now there's an opportunity. The first radio should come online next year, so that's really good, or maybe in the middle of this year. We'll see how that goes. And then the last one I want to highlight is a Brooks water system. And anybody ever go up there and go to eat at Highway 99, which is a really good restaurant, by the way, if you drive across from the freeway over to Highway 99, you will see a system off to the left, and that is a Brooks water system which will help industrial agricultural development in that area. The next area I want to highlight is transportation. I serve on the SCATS and the Mid-Willamette Valley Act. Those are 2 regional policy organizations that impact what we do with transportation systems in our community and beyond. What's the hot topic lately? Gas tax. I have no comment. But I'm going to state a fact. Current gas tax, federal is 18.4 cents, Oregon is 40 cents. If you drive a car that gets 30 miles to the gallon and you drive 15,000 miles a year, you use 500 gallons. You know what you pay in Oregon to drive 15,000 miles? $200. $100 of that goes to ODOT, $60 goes to counties, and $40 goes to cities. Add the federal tax, and you're paying $292 a year to drive your car 15,000 miles. Vicki and I paid $341.83 for the mass transit district on our property taxes last year. Think about that. We paid more for mass transit in Salem than we do for all the roads we drive on for 15,000 miles. Look at your property tax statement if you live in Salem. Let's go back to investments in Marion County and our Public Works Department. They issued 7,654 building permits, 242 land use approvals. Engineering and operations, I'm so proud of this group. They chip sealed 52 miles. We operate 2 ferries, 241,000 cars transferred back across the Willamette River, and bikes, by the way. I should have worn my bike tie today. In 2025, our capital projects in Public Works completed over $23 million in projects. In 2026, right now, we have scheduled over $38 million in capital projects. And for pre-planning this year, Lonnie, I think I see you right there. Sure she is. Pre-planning for future projects, $56 million future projects in our Public Works Department. I want to say thank you to our Public Works Department. Obviously, resources will restrain some of those projects in the future, and we're going to have some challenges to get that done. Community development, economic development. So this is our lottery, CBDG, I always get that confused. Extension services. Here, I'm just gonna read off places we've invested money, not the amounts, well, maybe some of them. Prosperity grants to 20 cities. I have a couple mayors, they got these grants. $1.2 million. 2 tourism collaboratives, $500,000. Capital Football Club for our youth. Salem Marion Berry's turf field at Chemeketa. Boys and Girls Club, Center for Hope and Safety Woodburn expansion, Samaka Place in Kaiser for women and children shelter. Yeah, go for it. Yeah. CASA expansion in Woodburn, Chemeketa College housing, Church at the Park, Crossroads Communities, City of Mount Angel for an intersection there. If anybody's ever been up that intersection, it's crazy. Santiam Hospital, Silverton Community Aid, Catholic Community Services, Family Building Blocks, Liberty House Woodburn expansion, Valor Mentoring, Homeowner Rehabilitation Program, and I'm sure I missed someone, but this is in addition to the ARPA projects. So I don't want to disappoint anybody, and I know you're on the edge of your seats because Vicki said I should talk about garbage and sewers. So garbage, here's what I'm going to say. It's not going to get any cheaper. Sorry, but my advice is to reduce, learn how to do that, be creative, reuse, and recycle, and go down to the smallest possible waste can that you can get to. She always gives me a bad time. Ours is too small. Our waste to energy facility is not coming back. We are currently sending our garbage after we recover about 45% between the recycling you do and our haulers that do it resource up in Brooks. We're recycling, we're getting about 45% out of that. We're sending it down to Coffin Butte and on trucks up I-5, out 84, which there's no pollution there. So I won't say anything about the author of the Statesman Journal article that said the turbine wasn't working at the waste to energy facility. And it wasn't Deb Patterson's bill that caused the shutdown. I won't say anything about that. But the turbine was still working until the day they finally stopped turning garbage into electricity. Then they shut down the turbine. But the fact is that we do not have a place close by to dispose of any of our garbage that used to be turned into electricity. That facility is not coming back. All right, let me close with the last topic. And, you know, I know you're sick of hearing about trash, so let me switch to a more palatable topic, sewers. If you drive up the canyon towards Detroit and you get past Mayor Kirsch's city, Mill City, and you look off to the right, you're gonna look out there and you're gonna go, what is going on? Are they building Disneyland up here? It is a huge project. Again, one of our ARPA projects, that sewer system will, I won't say how much work our team has gone through to really make that system work, and the legislature and all the things we've had to do to get that thing going. But somewhere this time next year, we'll be running water through it, and then probably by July of 2027, I think we'll be running sewer systems into Mill City. Shortly after that, we're going to run a line up to Gates, and Gates will have a sewer system. You better buy property up there, because guess what, right? Insider trading. But think of the shot in the arm for wildfire recovery in the canyon this is going to be. But it's taken many, many years to make these projects and a lot of work in this community. So there you have it, the state of the county in terms of garbage and sewer systems. But challenges remain. Never a dull moment when your costs of doing business are far outpacing the revenues that are coming in. Jan? That's a tough one. What are you going to do? And I love what Levi said. I believe that we will, however, be creative and meet those head on. I'm honored to serve as your Marion County Commissioner. The employees that we have work hard every day to meet the needs of 350,000 plus citizens in Marion County. And we, me, all of us, thank you because you are the ones that sign our paychecks.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And let me just start by saying what a privilege it is to be here with you today. I was listening to Levi and Mitch, and I just want you to know how grateful I am for the opportunity that you've all given me to serve this community that I love. Over the years, I've spoken with you all about homelessness in our community. Addressing this issue has been one of my top priorities as your commissioner. And although we still have a ways to go to dig out of the hole that Measure 110 and the legalization of drugs put us in, I'm confident we can get there. But in order to get there, we have to be real about the dangers of unregulated homeless camping in our community and the criminal activity that often takes place in these camps. It's important that we as a community come to the consensus that unregulated homeless camping is bad. That doesn't mean that all the people in these camps are bad. People go to these camps for many different reasons. But the policy of allowing unregulated homeless camping is a bad public policy. It's bad for the people living in the camps, and it's bad for our community. And we need to be convicted about this. Willis Marine Park is not in Marion County. It's right across the bridge there in Polk County. But for many years, there's been a large unregulated homeless camp there. Many people come across from that camp into Salem every day. Late last year, I heard there was some criminal activity going on, and so I asked our sheriff if he could have somebody in his office look into it and do some research. And the report that I received was terrible. And before I begin to tell you about it, some of what I'm going to share is probably not appropriate for young children. So if you're at home watching this, please be advised of that. The sheriff's office was able to identify 90 individuals who are living in Willis Marine Park. 40% of them had outstanding warrants for their arrest. 11 were sex offenders. Of those, nearly half were not compliant with their status. 49 of the 90 individuals, over 50%, had cautions on their criminal histories, which means they'd faced criminal charges that could pose a threat to law enforcement. Things like unlawful use of a weapon or a felon in possession of a firearm. 33 of these individuals had cautions from other states, and 17 of them had out-of-state drug charges. The sheriff's office found that drug use and trafficking was a central driving force in the park. A witness testified in the report that drugs are used to control and manipulate others. The witness talked about how on more than one occasion, receiving a hot shot, which is a syringe of dope that's been intentionally laced with another product such as fentanyl, rat poison, or even coagulant. This was used as payback for stealing, cheating with someone else, or not following orders. And if a person were to file a report with the police, according to this witness, they would be labeled a rat and assaulted or expelled from the park. According to the report, this witness observed a person labeled a rat, assaulted, beat up. All the supplies were stolen from them. They were then stripped naked and told to never come back. And sexual assaults are even more common than physical assaults in the homeless camp at Willis Marine Park. According to the report, predators prey on women and the newly homeless, the mentally ill, the elderly, young teens, runaways, transit mall youth. As young as 13 have made their way to the camp and have been targeted immediately. Victims are lured with the offer of drugs and kept high so that they will comply. They're held captive at the camp and often sexually assaulted over multiple days. The report also details how screaming is normalized and therefore ignored. One witness testified that she was lured into the camp with the offer of drugs and then held in the camp for multiple days by a man who raped her multiple times before she was able to escape. Many people in the park refuse medical treatment, which results in a high incidence of sexually transmitted diseases. In February of 2025, there was a report of a baby born in the camp at Willis Marine Park. After a search, officers were able to locate the baby and attempted to have the parents transported to the hospital, but they both refused. Officers alerted DHS and they were able to get a seizure warrant for the child. The mother and the child hid from DHS personnel for a month before they were able to be located. When DHS finally got the child to the hospital, the baby's body temperature was 91 degrees, and the child weighed only 7.5 pounds at a month old. The baby was severely dehydrated and hypoglycemic. Fortunately, the child survived, but we know of at least 4 babies born in Willis Marine Park. After I received this report in December, I brought it to the attention of our local Public Safety Coordinating Council, of which I'm the chair, and to their credit, both Salem Police Chief Trevor Womack and Salem Mayor Julie Hoy sprang into action. Chief Womack circulated a memo where he called for the end of unregulated homeless camping in Willis Marine Park, and the Salem homeless teams have been working on making that park safe for children and families again. However, now new large unregulated homeless camps have sprung up on ODOT right-of-way. This is unacceptable. We need the state to join us in ending unregulated camping in our community. Now that the city of Salem and Marion County are on the same page, we need the state of Oregon to step up as well. Currently, ODOT has a 10-day posted notice rule, which means that once ODOT posts notice at an unregulated camp, the folks there have 10 days to leave. But ODOT does not have adequate staff to do this in a timely manner, and it can take them more than 30 days to post a notice at a camp. Often these camps continue to grow to a large size over many months before ODOT can get around to posting a notice. And this actually makes it more difficult and expensive to clear the site, which leads to more delays. The notice period should be no longer than 48 or 72 hours as it is in Salem, and every state, city, and county law enforcement officer should have notices in their cars that they can hand to any unregulated camp of a significant size, regardless of the jurisdiction. When these notices are posted by the state, the Marion County outreach teams from the Sheriff's Office and Health Department that you heard about go to these camps and connect with folks, try to enroll them in services, and connect them to resources. But unfortunately, despite their success, just as often they're turned down. The reality is, as you've heard, we've spent millions of dollars, both public and private dollars, on increasing the number of shelter beds and treatment-oriented housing since I've been a commissioner. At CCS, UGM, the Samanka House, the Homeless Navigation Center, Center for Hope and Safety, Soaring Heights, various other nonprofits in our community have all added beds. And I'm really proud of these organizations. They're doing incredible work, and they're really making a difference. However, it's also true that many of these beds are empty on any given night. And sometimes people in unregulated camps refuse to enter shelter. If the reason that a person refuses to enter shelter is because of their addiction, then it's important for us to say that we will help you recover as many times as it takes from your addiction. But we won't enable it because these drugs are not good for you. They don't build you up, and they don't reflect the dignity that you deserve. Just in Marion County alone, over 400 people have died of drug overdoses since 2021 when Measure 110 passed. 400 people. This is horrible, but it's not inevitable. And it leads me to the second thing that we need to unite around as a community, that illegal drug use is bad. This doesn't mean that the people who struggle with addiction are bad people. Some of the best people I know are recovering addicts. We hire them at Marion County, and I would trust them with my kids. People fall into addiction for many reasons. And many of the people who are addicts and are in recovery have overcome unbelievable challenges in their lives. But drug addiction and drug trafficking is common in unregulated homeless camps, and it's often the reason that people in these camps refuse services. Until we as a community can come to a consensus that both unregulated homeless camping is bad and illegal drug use is bad, we will not be able to get our arms around this homeless problem in our community. And sometimes folks will say to me, if we don't allow these camps, then where will these people go? And I think you heard a lot about it, where the alternatives are from Commissioner Bethell. And in particular, our place that she talked about. This idea that there's a place where moms and dads together can go through treatment and don't have to be separated from their children is really the dream that I have, the vision that I have, the vision that we have for what it should look like here in Marion County. It's been successful in her place, it's been successful in his place. And as Commissioner Bethell mentioned, just 2 weeks ago, a couple brought a baby home to be with them. Instead of having to hide from DHS, instead of being worried that the state was going to come take their child, they got to keep that child. They got to stay in recovery. That child didn't have to be in danger, and they didn't have to be scared. That's the alternative. You know, the other day I was talking to a friend, and he said, I want Salem to be the place that everybody wants to come to. I want it to be the place where the best musicians want to come perform here, and the best artists. I want it to be a place with the best restaurants. I love this attitude. This is exactly the right attitude. For too long, I feel like we've been told that the failures we're experiencing in our community are the best that anybody can do, and that we should just get used to it. That it's normal to have failing institutions like the State Hospital or the Oregon Youth Authority or the Oregon Department of Education. You'll hear people say, well, homelessness will always be with us. But none of this is true. None of it is true. And we have to quit accepting a culture of mediocrity in the state of Oregon. So the next time you hear somebody say to you, nothing's going to change, or it's going to take a long time, or there's not much we can do, don't believe them. Don't believe them. Our motto in Marion County is expect excellence. We need to send this culture to the rest of the state. The time for failure in Oregon must end. The time for achievement is now, and Marion County is ground zero for this revitalization. And speaking of achievement, I want to talk to you a little bit about education. Last year I told you how there's a crisis in our schools, how adjusted for demographics, Oregon students rank dead last in the country in fourth grade reading and math. And despite the fact that spending on education has doubled over the last 10 years, our kids' performances on basic arithmetic and literacy tests have plummeted during the same time period. But now I want to tell you about a solution to this problem. In the budget reconciliation bill that Congress passed last year, a large amount of new federal funding was allocated to support K-12 education through a new tax credit. This tax credit is for donations to nonprofits that grant scholarships to kids for education. However, these scholarship granting organizations can only exist in a state if the state opts into this federal program. If Oregon does not opt into this federal program, Oregon kids will not get this money. It's that simple. This means that Oregon taxpayers would be funding scholarships for kids in other states, not kids in Oregon. And this will happen. This is a dollar for dollar tax credit. It's one of the most valuable tax credits that exists in the federal tax code. There's about 2.7 million taxpayers in the state of Oregon. If only 10% of these taxpayers use this credit, that's 1 out of every 10 people, that will mean nearly $500 million is going out of state from Oregon taxpayers to pay for education for kids in other states starting in 2027. This is why both Democrat and Republican governors have said that they will opt into this program. Democrat Governor Jared Polis in Colorado said, quote, I would be crazy to not opt in. If Colorado doesn't participate, our federal tax dollars will simply flow to other states. That's exactly right. However, Governor Tina Kotek here in Oregon has said she does not intend to opt into this program and allow these scholarship-granting nonprofits to operate in Oregon. If our governor doesn't join this program, Oregonians will be funding educational opportunities for kids in other states at a time when Oregon ranks dead last on fourth grade reading and math. That's unconscionable. And this is personal to me because when I was 12, I took a standardized test in school, and let's just say I didn't exactly ace the exam. And in particular, my math scores weren't great. Fortunately, my dad was interested in the outcome of that test, and so he signed me up for a math tutoring program after school. After doing an extra 100 math problems a day on top of my homework for several years, my math scores magically went up. Actually, it wasn't magic. It's the predictable result of a parent who cares and had the resources to sign his kid up for tutoring. With scholarship organizations in Oregon, no child would have to have their future limited due to a lack of resources. These funds can be used for tutoring, public school, private school, homeschooling, whatever a kid needs to learn. Now, I know that there might be some people who would be worried if we take this funding, it could hurt funding for our local public schools. We have wonderful public schools here in Marion County, so the thought could be if kids use this money to move away from public education, won't that put our public schools into financial crisis? The answer is no, and here's why. First, this is new federal money. It does not affect state funding for K-12 education. This is an opportunity to access additional federal dollars for our kids that we never had before. There's no reason this has to decrease state funding for schools, and I would not support that. Second, local public schools are beloved in Marion County. Kids who are going to a public school they're happy with can use this scholarship money to augment their education. They don't have to leave their school. They can use the money to make themselves better students and to personalize their educational experience. Math tutoring, reading help, financial literacy, a second language, music or dance lessons will become possible for thousands of kids in Marion County and the state of Oregon, regardless of their family's income. Teachers will be able to work with their students to use this money to multiply what they can do. This will be incredibly empowering to our frontline educators who are sick of seeing their kids fail in class with no way to help them. Community cornerstone schools like St. Paul, St. Mary's, Kennedy, Sublimity, Staten, Cascade, McNary, South, just to name a few of them, are vitally important to our community. This federal tax credit program has the possibility of turbocharging these schools, not harm them. We need to return more control to our schools and to tailor our educational offerings to the needs of our students and our communities. So I hope you'll join me in asking Governor Kotek to change her mind and opt into this federal program. At a time when students are performing the way they are in fourth grade reading and math, this is not the time to send hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding to help students in other states instead of helping our kids here in Oregon. Like my colleagues, I also want you to know how proud I am of the infrastructure investments we've been making on behalf of our communities the past several years that Commissioner Cameron talked about. The money that we received from the state and federal government was one-time money, and we treated it that way. Our budget this year is down over $100 million from last year because we're spending down the money that we set aside for capital projects. That means that we didn't take one-time money and create unsustainable programs with it. Instead, we took our job seriously in ensuring that we competently invested over $200 million in new roads, water systems, sewer systems, radio systems, parks, and facilities that will benefit our community for generations. And you'll probably laugh at this, but I'm also proud of our lawyers at Marion County. I'm proud of the lawsuits that we filed against the state to protect the safety of our community. I'm proud that we continue to hold the state accountable for its failures, like when it releases violent criminals into our community from the state hospital, or fails to adequately supervise the juveniles at McLaren. And finally, I'm proud of our Marion County District Attorney, Paige Clarkson, who has opened not one, but 2 grand jury investigations into failing state agencies. First, the Oregon Youth Authority, and now the state hospital. DA Clarkson served our community through some very difficult times, protecting us during riots, COVID, Measure 110 and the legalization of drugs, the defense attorney crisis, that time when Kate Brown granted clemency to hundreds of violent criminals and released them back into our community. At a time when public safety officials were under fire, Paige stood up and did what was right. She advocated for school resource officers, and she was willing to be the face of district attorneys across Oregon and go to that marble nut house down the road and push back against the bad legislation that was harming the people that we serve. When DAs in other metro areas were abandoning their posts, Paige was a steady hand at the tiller, even when it was unpopular with the Portland crowd. She's retiring at the end of this year, and I just want you all to know how lucky we were to have her serve us over the last 20 years. And our plan was to give her an award today, but she had the bad luck of becoming sick. So if you would please join me, would you join me in showing our appreciation to DA Clarkson? I know she's watching this at home. Paige, I know you're watching, and I hope you could see how much we all appreciate what you've done for us over the last 2 decades. Thank you. In the latest census data, Marion County was one of only 2 counties west of the Cascades that had more births than deaths, and were one of the 3 fastest growing counties in the state of Oregon over the last 5 years. As messed up as our state's been over the last 5 years, that's how good Marion County has been. This is still a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to start or grow a business. It's a great place for your kids to grow up. So thank you for each of you. Thank you for that, everything that you all do to continue to make this county strong. I wouldn't want to be a commissioner anywhere else in the world. So thanks again, and God bless.
I just have a really quick announcement to make. So we work hard, I think as you heard from Commissioner Cameron, on partnering with local community organizations to advance their mission. And one of the partners that we have the privilege of being neighbors with is Courtney Place, downtown Salem. And tomorrow happens to be, by the way, Commissioner Cameron's 70th birthday. On April Fool's Day, it's not a joke. And he and his wife, Vicki, are going to be...
born on Easter, so I'm a saint.
That's debatable. But tomorrow night, Courtney Place is having a fundraiser, an evening with Rob Riggle at 7 p.m. at the Elsnore Theater. And of course, the Commissioner and his wife are going for pure entertainment reasons because he's 70. You can still get tickets. We need this organization to be supported so it can double its capacity and do all the great things. So go online and look up Courtney Place and get tickets and go have a good laugh. And then, can we just all sing him happy birthday really quick? I'm going to lead it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kevin. Happy birthday to you. Thank you all for being here. Have a great afternoon.